Well, hello, District 11. Welcome to the first 100% virtual meeting of the year. Yes, I know what you're thinking. We have been virtual all year. So, what do you mean by 100% virtual meeting? What I mean is that this is more like a webinar, almost like a podcast in a lot of ways, because I have no audience tonight. I am recording a session for the benefit of our area directors and division directors, but there's nobody out there physically listening to me while I'm recording this. I'm doing this though because I believe that we need to invest in the development and the learning opportunities for all Toastmasters. We just finished all of our club officer training, which has done an exceptional job again this year. And we don't really do anything for area directors and division directors after the first couple of months of the Toastmasters year. And it seems silly because we ask them to do so much. We ask all of you as area directors and division directors to do so much throughout the course of the year. And yet we don't necessarily invest nearly as much in you throughout the course of the year as what we do in terms of club officer training. This is a session that is 100% geared towards all of you that are area directors and division directors, although without a doubt, this is a message and this is a training that could certainly help anybody out there that is in any sort of leadership and or management position, any sort of club officer that's out there, anyone looking to be a club officer. This is certainly a message that should be able to resonate with all of you, and I hope that you get something useful out of this opportunity to just learn a little bit more about management and leadership. So why am I doing this training specifically? Because it's not one of the required trainings. It's a voluntary training, which probably goes a long way to explaining why I'm doing this one by myself. But why am I still doing this one, and why do I think it's important? Quite simply, it's because Toastmasters says that we are where leaders are made. Toastmasters is where leaders are made. But yet, if you think about what we do as a club officer, as a district officer, as an area director, as a division director, so much of what we do, so much of our daily activity is 100% geared around management, about managing behaviors, managing expectations, managing resources. It's not necessarily all about leadership. So yes, we are an organization where leaders are made, but we are also an organization where managers are developed. Yet we don't talk so much about the role of management within our clubs, within our organizations. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like, what managers do compared to what leaders do, how that plays out within Toastmasters clubs and area and division directors, and what you can get out of the opportunity to learn how to both manage and lead, because they are two very separate types of responsibilities. So what is it that a manager actually does? Well, there's a couple things that managers do. Probably the most important thing that managers do is they help us in the short term. Management is the act of aligning immediate behaviors in a predictable, measurable, and repeated process to ensure the efficient operation and the survival of what already exists. Now, I want to go over that last line again because that's really important. Managers ensure the survival of what already exists. Now, management is more of a short-term focus. So you're looking at what you already have out there and how do we ensure that this is going to last, not just right now, but it's going to continue to last in short-term increments into the future. How do we ensure that what we are doing is for the benefit of clubs, of districts, of areas, of divisions, to help those individuals that are in those groups, to help those physical entities of clubs and areas and divisions to last, not just to last, but to thrive. Management is all about those short-term actions, those short-term responsibilities, utilizing resources, divvying up resources to help in the short term, to help in the immediate future. Now, what do I mean by short term? Short term is usually thought of in the next, say, 12 to 24 months. So when you are looking at your club or when you're looking at your area, when you're thinking of short term, there are a couple of things that immediately come to mind. If you're a club, What are you going to have for a meeting next week? What speakers are you going to have? What evaluators are you going to have? If you're looking a little bit farther down the road, who are going to be your next slate of club officers? If you're looking even a little bit farther than that, where are we going to meet once we start meeting in person again? Are we going to be a hybrid club? Are we going to be an all online club? Are we going to ditch the Zoom altogether? And are we going to be just an in-person club? Those are all short-term decisions that ensure the well-being and survival of that club. You're going to be making those decisions to help attract members, to educate members, to engage members, to engage the best of what your members have, and to help them move down an educational path so that what they're doing in the club isn't just for Toastmasters, but it's something that they can then apply outside of Toastmasters. Now, for area directors, a lot of those short-term, those 12 to 24-month marks come with in terms of how am I going to make sure that all of my club officers get through club officer training? How am I going to ensure that I have full slates of officers in every club? How am I going to ensure that clubs are doing the right thing to attract new members? And then when you get past those individual club responsibilities, what are you doing to ensure that area reports are done in a way that build a relationship, build a reciprocal relationship with the clubs with which you are visiting? Because you can go to a meeting, whether it's virtually, whether it's in person, and you can sit in the back of the room and watch the meeting and then go home and fill out your reports, and you've done your job according to Toastmasters. But have you actually done your job? Have you actually done what's really important? So the important thing for area directors isn't the completion of the reports. It's about the relationships developed through the completion of reports. It's about ensuring that what you are doing when you are in the club meeting isn't just adding value to the meeting itself, but it's adding value to the members, to the club, to the officers. You are helping them understand what they can do to better utilize their resources, to better plan for the short term, and also to start looking at how to develop leaders for the long term. Area directors have an amazing ability, have amazing opportunity to get into clubs and build relationships so that not just the club survives, but the individual area director develops a relationship with the folks in that club that help blossom something within themselves too. Every time that we step onto a stage, every time we step out into public, if you're a leader, if you have a position of authority, so a club officer, an area director, division director, a district officer, everyone's looking at you. You are always on stage. Back when I used to work for Disney, I remember right before you would make the corner at Epcot, before you left Aramark and went on stage, there was this giant mirror that you had to walk past. And on top of it, emblazoned in big letters, said, "You are always on stage. Make Mickey proud." And it was a great reminder that you are always representing the brand. You are always representing the office. You're always representing yourself whenever you're on stage. And area directors and division directors are on stage in a lot of different areas than what you normally would be on stage. So beyond the area reports, there's a couple other places where you tend to have to be able to manage processes. And the first of those places comes in with contests. How you're able to manage contests speaks a lot about your ability to manage resources. Now, this year that we are physically separated, area contests, which we're getting ready for right now as we speak, are a little bit different. We don't have the physical geographical limitations that we've always had before in terms of how can I find a chief judge? Where am I going to find a test speaker? Where am I going to find my functionaries to ensure that I can put on the best contest possible for the contestants, for the members? Because area contests are not for the area director, they are for the members and the clubs for which the area director is serving. But because we don't have those physical limitations this year, we can step out, reach out to other divisions. We can reach out to other districts if we wanted to draw in town, to draw in other Toastmasters and utilize this as an opportunity to expand our brand. If you wanted to, There's nothing saying that you can't reach out and invite non-Toastmasters to come and watch an international speech contest and speech evaluation contest and draw them into what Toastmasters is. Let's think about what those two opportunities are. The International Speech Contest brings out the best speakers in District 11 in our entire Indiana, Northern Kentucky area. And it gives them an opportunity to showcase their talents and what Toastmasters has done for them as speakers. And then from an evaluation standpoint, show me a manager that doesn't want somebody who's able to better connect with their people and help them grow. There's not an employer out there that doesn't look at that as a skill that is vital to the success and the development of their organization. So there's opportunities to use the area contest to draw others in, to use it as a recruiting tool, as a giant area open house if you wanted to. Those are all opportunities that you have within being an area director to ensure that you can maximize that opportunity. Then when you also look towards the end of the year, whom are you recruiting and grooming to take over for you next year? Are you planning on moving to a division director role next year? Do you want to repeat as an area director the following year? Because let's face it, a lot of what we do as an area director, we finally figure out what we're supposed to do at about the halfway point, and then only have 6 months to kind of do it. So sometimes folks like to repeat as an area director. You figured it out one year, and now you're going to apply it the next year. All of those are short-term management capabilities of area directors. And if you notice, a lot of that is different from the way that Toastmasters tends to talk about these types of roles. We tend to talk about those as leadership roles. And we'll get into how they are leadership roles as well. But there's a lot of management in terms of finding resources, utilizing resources, building relationships, setting up an immediate short-term plan to ensure the survival and the thriving of every individual club and area and division that's out there. So there's a lot of management that goes along with each of these roles that we have. So beyond the management is short-term. It is nimble, meaning that just because you have a plan for today doesn't mean that it's going to come to fruition. If you've ever put on an area contest or a club contest, you know sometimes people don't show up. Management is the process that enables you to be reactive. It also is the process to enable you to be proactive. But it means that you're not so set within how you're going to operate that you're unable to change when the situations change, when the context changes. Those things are very different. You're solving the immediate problem that's right in front of you. You're very process-driven, very task-oriented to ensure that what you're doing is for the betterment of the club, of the people right now. It's for the short term. It's immediate. That's a little bit different than what leadership is. Leadership is more strategic. And it tends to be what we think about when we talk about what Toastmasters International does when we say that we are where leaders are made. Leadership is the act of aligning behaviors, values, goals, visions, missions, aspirations, and expectations to provide an organization with the requisite long-term direction, meaning, and purpose to its employees and constituents. Now let's break that down a little bit. The act of aligning behaviors, values, goals, missions, vision, aspirations, and expectations. What does that really mean? Well, what that means is that we do what we say what we do, and what we do and what we say are aligned, meaning they are synchronized, meaning that one supports the other. When you are aligned, you're able to unleash energy. And the way that I like to think about this, I think a great visual for this is Newton's cradle. If you've ever had a Newton's cradle, you know there's 5 balls in a 5 or 6 metal orbs in a row hanging from a string. And on one side, when you drop that ball and it comes in, energy is transferred through the entire string. And at the other end, almost magically, the ball goes up at the other end and comes back. That energy is transferred back across all the orbs. And that first orb that went down goes up and back. Energy is transferred through the entire organization. But just like with a Newton's cradle, if you drop in something that is misaligned, meaning if you drop in, say, as those balls are going back and forth, you all of a sudden drop something in from the side, and it side swipes those balls, and all of a sudden chaos ensues and everything comes to a stop. The same thing happens in organizations. They happen in nonprofits like Toastmasters. They happen in your business. Whenever we create chaos, all of a sudden we slow down our progress. So the alignment between what you say and what you do has to also be aligned with what you expect, what you aspire to become, the values you hold and the values you talk about, and also the mission of where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. When all of those are aligned and energy is freely transferred between them, magic happens. You're able to unleash potential energy that you could have never experienced before. Being able to bring out the best in someone else requires us to find the potential energy hidden within them. The best way to do that is through alignment. Now, it also talks about requisite long-term direction, meaning, and purpose. So what is long-term? When you think long-term, I want you to think beyond about 24 months, so a couple of years down the road for the most part. When you're looking at long-term, you're looking for more of a strategic plan for where we're going for the future. It's not about what we're doing today. It's about where we are going tomorrow. Long-term is very different from short-term in that what you're doing long-term is you are trying to realize a future, that was never going to happen unless you made it happen. So what does it mean, though, to envision a future? Do you have to be a wild visionary like a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk? No, absolutely not. You don't need to have an amazing vision. You need to have a plan, a strategic plan, and you can always take someone else's vision that resonates with you and incorporate that in where you're trying to go. You don't have to be the one that creates the great vision of where we're trying to go. You just have to be the one that has a vision of where we're trying to go. Let me give you a good example for that. When we first realized last March that we were not going to be able to hold a spring conference, decision was made that we were then going to transition to online learning events, which is where the Great Education series came from last spring. We then also decided, as Gina and I talked about what we were going to do going forward, we realized that this was a wonderful opportunity with Zoom, that as our members are disconnected and they are dispersed around geographic locations, we can use Zoom to bring them back together. That's why we've had so many training opportunities this year. We've had far more than we would have ever needed to have if we would ever to meet in person. But we did it not just for the opportunity to deliver better training, certainly was part of it, but the other part of it was to ensure that there was a way to bring people together, because our long-term vision is about building a community of Toastmasters in District 11 that supports each other. That's where we're trying to go. We're trying to build a stronger community so that together we can succeed. That's where we're trying to go. That's the long-term vision. That's the long-term mission of what we're trying to do. Trying to build supportive clubs, all willing to help each other grow. We did that through the Zoom process. So there was management that went along with how do you set up meetings? How do you do all the trainings? How do you use the calendar? All those technological things we had to figure out. Those were management. But the long-term vision, the strategic plan that we set for where we're going to go long-term with this was set out because we knew we were trying to go somewhere. The second thing we did with this is, if you think about what we did with all of this education and training, and by saving it on our private playlist on YouTube, we weren't doing that just to allow you to have access to it. We wanted to start building a knowledge management platform so that future generations of District 11 leaders and officers could go back and see what the officers of these years knew. Because at some point, we're all going to walk away from Toastmasters. At some point, we're all going to move beyond what we're doing now and do something else. Maybe it's not next year. Maybe it's not in 5 years. Maybe it's not in 10 years. Maybe it's not in 20 years. But someday we're all going to move on from Toastmasters. Part of the strategic plan, part of that long-term leadership vision was to start creating a knowledge management database so that we would have access to everyone's expertise after they're gone. We didn't want to lose any more knowledge within the district. We wanted to ensure that was there. And that also then brings everyone together into a common memory of what it was like with that person, what it was like to learn from that individual, what it was like with that experience, and bringing people together again. Again, we are focused on trying to build a community, and part of that community is ensuring that we don't lose the knowledge of those members that are within our community right now. So that is the difference between management and leadership. So again, leadership very much long term. It is designed to solve problems not yet realized. And what that means is, as you move throughout the course of your career, as you move from a division director, area director, whatever it is, at some point you're going to realize you don't have the resources or the ability to solve the problems of today with the resources you currently have. When you realize you have to move beyond what you currently own and start making strategic plans to solve today's problems in a new way, that's the start of leadership. It's moving beyond what you can do now to realizing a future not yet realized. That's when you start to become more of a leader. Leadership is also very change focused. Leadership leading is a verb. It is not a noun. Anyone who leads knows that it is active. There's a difference between somebody who holds a position of power, which is authority, and somebody who actually leads. Being change focused means that you're not willing to accept the status quo or be stagnant with where you are. You see that there are opportunities for you to go someplace that you could not have gone before. And the goal is to be able to take everyone with you towards that new location, to cross the bridge, to make the jump from here to there. It is all change driven. And it can be very scary for some to accept that change is going to happen. But if we don't accept that change is going to happen, we're going to get left behind. It's going to happen as a district. It would happen as an area, as a club, as a division, as a Toastmaster, as a business person, as a family member, as a friend. Nothing stands still. Leadership helps us move forward. It's always forward thinking. And the last is that it is always vision oriented, meaning that there's always somewhere that you see you're going. In your mind's eye, as a leader, your job is to transfer only what you can see in your mind's eye to the masses. And you do that through language, you do that through action, you do that through presentation, you do that through behaviors. Your words matter. The words that you use to paint an image of where you're trying to go, and why you're trying to get there, what the benefit is going to be once we reach that, wherever that is going to be, whatever that's going to entail, being able to do that inspires others to follow you. So leadership, it's long-term, it's strategic, it's forward-thinking, and it is always about trying to solve a problem that we don't yet have a resource or a solution for today. So where management stops and where leadership starts, again, when you can no longer solve that current problem using yesterday's solutions. It's the abandonment of the status quo. And I think it's important to talk about the difference between what a manager does and what a leader does. So let's start with what a leader does. I think this is a better place to start. We'll go backwards with this one. Leaders really only have a couple of main things that they have to do in order to be a leader. One is that leaders have to have followers. If you don't have anybody following you, you're not actually leading anybody. You're just standing out in nowhere speaking. Kind of like what I'm doing right now. This isn't really so much a leadership process right now. This is more of a management process where I'm trying to be part of a knowledge management solution. Leaders always have followers and willing followers. They have folks that are willing to stand behind them, do what you ask of them in the pursuit of something that they can't fully see or maybe even realize, but they believe that you're going to take them to where they need to go. Leaders are humble individuals. They are not necessarily always charismatic, but they are always caring. They have amazing empathy where they are able to feel with someone, not sympathy, but empathy. We're able to walk with someone to help them become a better version of themselves, help them take that second step, not just the first step, but the second step. Managers, on the other hand, they're the ones that are directing. They're the ones that are process driven. They're the ones that are coaching. They are in the nitty gritty, in the day-to-day basics of ensuring that what needs to happen today happens. So from a area director standpoint, making sure that you have folks that are going through training, making sure that you have enough resources for your contests. For division directors, making sure that your area directors have the knowledge they need to impact their clubs. Those are management-driven processes. There's always processes out there for managers. Managers control the controllables for whatever it is they're trying to do. It's a big difference between leadership and management. Leadership, long-term focused, visionary, looking to inspire others to move. Managers, short-term focused, controlling, not necessarily as a micromanager, that's different, but they control the actions and behaviors towards a specific goal. They don't overly control them in terms of you have to do it my way. That's not a thing. That's micromanagement, and that doesn't work. But they are setting up the expectations for where you're supposed to go. They're following up and ensuring that what needs to happen happens. Those are the big differences between what a manager does and what a leader does. Managers also have another tool at their disposal, and there's something called situational leadership developed by Ken Blanchard and Paul Hershey back in the 1980s. And while it's called situational leadership, it's actually a management process, actually a management solution. And this is something that all great managers are able to help their people move through. Now, situational leadership is, without a doubt, situational. It's more management than leadership, but it is always situational, meaning that this is how you interact with people by task, by individual task, not by big picture. You're not saying this person always does this thing. You are interacting with somebody and you're coaching them on how to do a specific task in a specific way to get to a specific result. Now, whenever somebody comes into an organization, when they first take a job, the role of a manager is really to be a little bit more directing. If you start down in that bottom right red box where it says directing, those are the folks that need high direction but low support. The reason why you need high direction but low support, they've joined the club, they've joined the group, they've joined the contest, and they're there and they're like, yes, I'm here, let's go. And someone says, where are you going? And they say, I don't know, but I'm ready to go wherever that is. No idea what I'm doing, but I am super happy to be here. So the job of a manager for that individual in that task is to help give them the direction. They don't need to motivate anybody with that. They don't need to support them, but they do need to help direct them in terms of what it is you need them to do with that individual task. How do you be a timer? You need to sit down and tell them how to be a timer. Walk through it step to step. You need to walk someone through how do you do a contest on Zoom, step by step. Each step is a separate task. Eventually, after they're there for a little bit, they're going to start to realize something. Now, all of a sudden, they know what they don't know. And it starts to become a big deal. And there's when you have those folks that are like, I was so excited, but what did I sign up for? This is a lot of work. Some of you as area directors and division directors thought that partway through the first term, like, this is a lot of stuff we're asking you to do. But then at some point, we gave you enough support. We gave you enough direction. You started to figure stuff out. You started to learn what it is that you were starting to do. You had some confidence. You had still some drive to do it. You knew why you were there, but it was waning. It was things have happened. I didn't expect this. I don't know if I really like it so much. And then once you get past that stage, once by task, once someone gets past that waning knowledge, that waning supportive behavior, that waning competence, then they start to become technically competent. They have competence within their role. They know how to do stuff, but they don't necessarily want to do the stuff that they know how to do. There's a couple big reasons why that happens. One, it can be a punishment to do the thing. When you have somebody who always gets asked to do a specific task because they're great at it, it doesn't mean that they like doing that task. Being the only one to clean up after a meeting, not always fun. Competence, very high. Commitment, not so much. Those D3 behaviors, those S3 behaviors, where you don't need a lot of direction because the competence is there. What you need to do is support them. You need to give them, you need to cheer them on, remind them why they're involved in this individual process, why they're involved with your club, why they've come to a contest, why they're going to be a club officer, an area director, a division director, maybe why they're going to run for the trio. They have the knowledge, but yet they don't necessarily have the knowledge, but not the drive. You're trying to help them find that drive again. And then lastly, you get to a situation by task where the person knows how to do it and they want to do it. Just let them go. They say, I don't care if there's nobody on a Zoom call. I'm going to still record it because I think there's value in it. And I want to help our area directors and division directors get something valuable. I want to invest in them, even if they're not able to join me right now. That's more of an S4 behavior, D4 behavior, where you're focusing on just giving them some support, you're giving them some direction, but not a lot. They don't need to be constantly coached on how to do something. They don't need to be constantly inspired on why to do it, but they still need a little bit of recognition out there, because low support and low direction never means no support or no direction. So this whole situational leadership model, if you move somebody from a task as they first start going, yes, I can't wait, until I don't know what I'm doing, to I don't know why I'm doing it, to I can't wait to do it. And those 4 steps repeat on a regular basis, task to task to task. Now, sometimes folks slide backwards, though. You might have somebody that loves doing this thing, but then they realize they're the only one doing it, and it becomes a punishment, and they slide from that kind of delegating type of situation where you just need to give them low support and low coaching, and they slide back into, we need to help inspire and motivate them to help draw out those feelings, those internal feelings of motivation to why they're doing this in the first place. What is it? Not those external drivers, but the internal drivers that matter. This is a model that it's all through the corporate world. I encourage you, go look up situational leadership. If you're not using it within your areas, within your divisions, consider implementing this at some point. It is a wonderful tool to be able to manage people's behaviors and motivations by individual tasks. It will make you a much more effective manager, no matter what situation you are in. So those are all very important processes for how to manage. I think we've talked a little bit about how to manage and how to lead. So I want to leave you with a couple of things here. I want to leave you first with kind of what are the things, like a recap on what are the things that managers really do. I think there are a couple of things you can really take away from this. Managers focus on those day-to-day operations, the short-term projects. They are working on individual behaviors in the here and now. They're trying to ensure the survival and the thriving of an entity, of a club, of an area, of a division, of a district now. They're using today's resources to solve today's problems. It's immediate. It's timely. Conversely, when you look at leaders, leaders are more on a quest to envision a future and to realize a future that was never going to happen unless they did something to make it happen. They are the individuals that look at today's problems and realize we don't have the resources or the knowledge. We need to do something different. We don't have the direction of where we're trying to go. We don't have something and we need to do something different to get there. They're very much change focused. And the reason why this is very different from management is you can't manage a task that isn't even here yet. You can only manage things that are in the here and now. You can manage books, you can manage processes, but you can't manage future expectations in terms of doing something that's going to have an immediate impact on what hasn't even happened yet. You can only do something. You can only do that with what is actually here right now. Leaders solve problems in the future. They solve long-term problems. They're very strategic, and they are always the ones that are out there looking to inspire change, to motivate people, to find that intrinsic motivation of what makes an individual tick to help them become a little bit better, to take the next step forward. They have amazing empathy. They have great humility. They're able to connect with individuals on a regular basis. So I hope that helps you a little bit with management versus leadership. So I want to leave you with one other thought, because we are where leaders are made. And I want to leave you with a thought for what I see as being the keystone behaviors, the things that all great leaders possess, all great leaders do. And not everyone does them as well as others. Some of them you need to work on all of them. Leadership is absolutely a skill that can be developed, just like management is a skill that can be developed. But I think there's 5 things, or 4 things really, that I think leaders do exceptionally well. Great leaders do exceptionally well. The first is that they lean into discomfort, meaning that they're not going to shy away from what is hard. They're not going to shy away from the difficult conversation. They're not going to shy away from the difficult project. They're not going to cower in a moment because it's uncomfortable. They're going to step up in those times of discomfort because they know that others are looking to them for guidance. Leaders are always willing to lean into the discomfort to risk failing in the pursuit of greatness. I've said for years that Toastmasters is a laboratory for failure. And in that way, it does a fantastic job of developing leaders. Leaders are willing to fail in the pursuit of growth. They're willing to fail forward, as Darren LaCroix would say, which I think he might have stolen that one from me, because I started saying that in the mid-90s. We didn't know each other, so maybe it's just coincidence. But leaders are always willing to fail forward, to lean into that discomfort, to enter the danger of what might go wrong, of risking failure. They learn both from mistakes and from successes, knowing that if you just study your failures, all you know how to do is not fail, but you don't know how to succeed. So leaders also study successes, even if it's uncomfortable to do so. So leaders always willing to lean into this discomfort. Second is that they live their values, meaning that when a leader says, I believe in this, then their actions are aligned with their words, and they actually do say that. I believe that part of what makes Toastmasters amazing and why I'm involved in Toastmasters is the opportunity to help others find who they're supposed to be, to find their potential, to unlock their potential. I believe that our job is to be lamplighters, to help show the way for others, to help them go where they're supposed to go. If you notice that a lot of what I do is based upon those principles, not just in Toastmasters, but very much in life as a whole. I try to be a lamplighter everywhere I go because I want others to be able to see a way forward. It doesn't matter what your values are. Your values don't have to be esoteric like that. They can be very grounded. But as long as you are leaning into those values, you're leading with those values, you're living those values, that's what great leaders do. Leaders have alignment between what they say and what they do, and between what they value and what they expect. If you have that alignment, folks will follow you. That's one of the great parts of being a leader. Third is that they build trust. When you think about trust, oftentimes it's a word that's thrown around but isn't really described. So what trust is to me is it's conditional competence, meaning that trust is formed when you say you're going to do something, you have the ability to do something, you actually do the thing you said you're going to do, and you do it well. So you have to be willing to have the ability to do it, be able to do it in the right context, be able to do it when you say you are, and then have the outcome that you have claimed you could have. That's when trust is built. Trust isn't just built because you said you're going to do something and you did it. That doesn't mean it's going to transition. Trust to me is very transitional, that I should be able to trust somebody in multiple situations, but my trust should be limited to specific situations. We'll give an example. I believe I'm a relatively trustworthy person when it comes to developing training programs, when it comes to leading at Toastmasters. I am completely untrustworthy if you gave me your car to repair. If you said, hey, Scott, I think that you should fix my carburetor, I would say, be prepared to take the bus for a while, because I don't have any ability to do that. I don't have the knowledge to be able to do that. You could trust me when I say I can't do it. And if you insisted, you're going to be walking somewhere. So there's no ability, that it's situational, just like situational leadership, more of a management process. It's by task. Trust is also very contextually driven. You have to be able to trust somebody to do specific things, not all things. Trust matters in the smallest of moments. When you build that trust, when you are developing trust with somebody, that's where humility really comes in. You have to be able to say, I don't know, and then go find an answer. You have to be willing to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't have all the answers, let alone all the questions. I need to go ask better questions to learn more things. Being vulnerable builds trust. It builds relationships. Very important for leadership. I think the last thing that's really important for leaders is you have to be able to reset after failure. So not everything is going to always go well. Sometimes you're going to be in a situation where you're not going to get the outcome that you wanted. And you're going to be left wondering, well, how did that happen? What do I do next? Leaders have a way to bounce back from those failures. Let me give you an example. We just had the Super Bowl. The biggest game of the year, National Football League, just happened on Sunday. And as we all know, the Chiefs lost. They lost big time to the Buccaneers. When I was in college, one of the best teams in the NFL was the Buffalo Bills. And I went to college in rural Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, a little town called Clarion. And not far from Clarion is a little town called East Brady. The quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, it was Jim Kelly, and he was from East Brady. So in the off season, because I went to school year round and I was living in Clarion year round at the time, I would run into him every once in a while, especially after I was over 21. I would run into him at bars every once in a while. I'd run into him at picnics every once in a while. And I was always amazed that even though he would lose Super Bowls, he never lost faith and conviction that they were going to go back and next year was going to be their year. There was always an ability to compartmentalize, to say that thing happened, it's done, it's over, it's gone. And now tomorrow, I'm going to start anew and start fresh and build something even better. So leaders are able to realize part of leading is you're going to fail. Anytime you are risking stepping out of the status quo, anytime you are risking something new, there's a chance it's not going to work out. You might fail. And leaders are okay with that. They know that within failure comes lessons, and within lessons are learning. And if you learn enough, you can reset and move forward. They also look at what they did well and learn from those successes. So leadership isn't always just about learning from your failures. It's also learning about your successes. But when you do fail, leaders are able to put it behind them, start fresh, and move forward to something else. There can be amazing disappointment. It's not to say that you're not disappointed, but it doesn't mean that you're going to lash out because you failed. It's part of the journey. Failing is part of the journey. Doing something great requires you to push beyond your limits, to push your team beyond their limits. And sometimes you're going to push too far, and that's okay. In the right context, you can find a new way and you can push forward to grow. So I hope those lessons resonate with you a little bit. Again, I wanted to do this to try to give area directors and division directors a little bit of attention. as we don't really focus on their journey much after the first 90 days of the Toastmasters year. And I thought this was a valuable lesson as we get into the second half of the year. So this last quarter, really, where we have area contest, division contest, district contest, a spring conference. We are in the second round of area director reports, and sometimes just a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of knowledge when it comes to when am I managing, when am I leading, and how do I know the difference? And are there tools out there that I could be better at both? So I hope that you learned a little bit tonight about, or whenever you're watching this, about the difference between management and leadership. Hope this was helpful. I'm interested to hear what you have to think, as this was one that we recorded without an audience. So I'm interested in your thoughts on how this went tonight, if it was engaging, if it was not engaging, if it was helpful or not helpful. So you know how to hit me up. Please feel free to reach out at your convenience. I thank you for all that you do. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Area directors, division directors, district leaders, thank you so much for all that you've done for us this year, for what you've done for your members this year, for your clubs this year, for your officers this year, and for yourself this year. Keep being safe, keep pushing forward, keep being the leader that you wish you had had, keep being the manager you always knew you could be. And as always, toast on. So with that, have a great night. I will see you tomorrow for another training session. Hopefully we'll have a couple of folks show up tomorrow night. If not, we'll be doing the same process again tomorrow night. As always, toast on, my friends. Toast on. Be well.